Okay, let's dive right in. Millions. It's a huge number, isn't it? The World Health Organization says millions of people get sick from contaminated food every single year.
Mm,
It really just highlights how vital, you know, our food supply chains are.
absolutely vital.
But what if there's like a fundamental change happening, almost a secret weapon being used, not just in food, but across loads of industries?
Yeah, tackling these really complex problems in our global supply networks.
Exactly. We're talking about blockchain technology.
And it's fascinating, isn't it, watching this tech, which, let's be honest, most people first heard about with Bitcoin,
Right, cryptocurrency.
now becoming this real tangible force. It's changing how physical things, goods get made, how they move around the world, and, how they end up with us.
Totally. And that's really the heart of this deep dive. We want to explore how blockchain is, well, potentially set to completely reshape supply chains.
Yeah, aiming for more transparency, better efficiency, much stronger security.
And we've gone through quite a bit of material for you, academic papers, detailed industry reports, even studies from places like the European Parliament.
A real mix.
Yeah, a mix, all to try and pull out the most important, the most interesting insights for you.
Now, look, we get it. When you start talking about new tech, like blockchain, it can sometimes feel a bit much, a bit overwhelming.
Definitely.
So our goal here, our mission, is pretty simple, really. We want to cut through the jargon,
Okay.
pull out what's actually valuable, give you a clear, hopefully engaging idea of how it works, and crucially, why it actually matters.
Think of us as your guides navigating this. We'll look at the basics of blockchain for supply chains, explore real-world uses food, pharma, fashion, agriculture, logistics.
It's being tried everywhere.
It really is. And we'll also pinpoint the big plus points, but also the, let's be honest, the real challenges in getting this adopted more widely. Ready to jump in?
Let's do it. So maybe start with the fundamentals. What exactly is blockchain?
Okay, yeah, good starting point. So at its heart, blockchain is basically a shared digital infrastructure. Think of it almost like a super secure shared online ledger. You use it to record and swap data.
Mm-hmm. And what makes it different, revolutionary even, are these core principles.
Right. First up, decentralization.
Yeah, so instead of one single company, or maybe a government, holding all the info,
Like usual.
it's spread out, distributed across lots and lots of different computers.
And that's just huge for trust, right? No single person or group can just change the records on their own.
Exactly. That lack of a central control point is fundamental. Then you've got immutability.
Okay, what's that?
It means once a record, they call it a block of data, gets added to this chain, it's incredibly difficult, basically impossible, to alter it or delete it.
Wow. Okay.
So you get this permanent, checkable history of everything that's happened.
Right. And the third big one is transparency. Now, this doesn't always mean everyone sees who did what. Identities can be sort of hidden, pseudonymous.
Yeah, that's important.
But generally, anyone who's supposed to be on the network, the authorized participants, they can usually see the data, the transaction history, all in order.
And it's really worth stressing, again, yeah, it started with Bitcoin, but the potential uses go way, way beyond just crypto.
Absolutely.
Thinking of it as a special kind of distributed database can be helpful. A database not in one place, but copied and spread across a whole network.
And keeping it all secure is some, well, pretty clever stuff. Cryptographic techniques.
Right, like super complex digital locks and keys.
Exactly. Making sure only the right people can get in, can verify the data. It makes tampering almost impossible. These techniques lock down the data and check every new transaction before it becomes a new block on this growing chain.
Okay, so we have these core ideas: decentralization, immutability, transparency. So why is this specific tech seen as such a potential, game changer for something as complex as supply chains?
Now, think about typical supply chains.
Yeah.
They often struggle with things like fraud, simple human errors in record keeping,
Oh, yeah.
a general lack of trust between all the different companies involved, and just the massive headache of trying to track goods moving through these complicated, often global networks.
Precisely. And this is exactly where blockchain's built-in features really shine. By creating that single, unchangeable version of the truth that everyone who's allowed can see, it just naturally builds way more trust throughout the whole system. This shift, where you don't just have to hope someone's record is right because verification is part of the system, it opens up new ways to work together. It cuts down disputes, which are a huge drag on traditional chains.
Yeah, I can see that.
And that trust, well, it can lead to much smoother processes overall.
And that real-time tracking aspect is massive too. Blockchain gives you a full verifiable history of where a product has been.
From start to finish.
Yeah, its origins, every single move, who handled it. That kind of a detailed visibility is just critical for making logistics better, for proving something's authentic, checking quality, and even, tracking sustainability efforts properly.
So let's make this more concrete. Let's look at some actual examples of how this is being used. We could start with food, which, as you said right at the beginning, has these huge challenges around traceability and safety.
For sure, I mean, that WHO statistic about millions getting sick, it just hammers home how badly we need better systems. Blockchain gives us a way to really closely monitor if quality rules and standards are being followed.
At every single step.
Yeah, from the farm, through processing, transport, right up to when you or I buy it.
And we are seeing some really interesting things happening already. Walmart, for instance, they've run pilots looking at end-to-end traceability for things like shrimp,
Shrimp, right.
capturing data right back at the source. And if there is a problem, they can pinpoint it super fast, isolate the issue, and limit the damage much quicker than before.
And it's not just seafood. You've got ABI InBev, the huge brewer.
Global company.
Yeah, they're putting blockchain into their massive global operations. The idea is to get this totally transparent network of suppliers, connecting everyone from the farmers growing the barley or hops right through to the brewery.
Another good one is tracking tuna. Blockchain can show consumers exactly where their tuna came from, prove it was caught legally within quotas, which helps push for more sustainable fishing.
Even broader agriculture, right?
Yep.
Like the Agricultural Bank of China has this platform using blockchain to track the whole farming process.
Yeah, the aim there is boosting food safety, cutting down on fraud in that agricultural supply chain.
Okay, let's switch gears. Pharmaceuticals,
Mm-hmm.
obviously incredibly high stakes there with safety and the massive problem of counterfeit drugs.
A huge global threat, yeah. And blockchain looks like a really strong tool for that end-to-end tracking of medicines.
So this is where things like PharmaChain fit in.
Exactly. PharmaChain is a specific framework built on something called Hyperledger Fabric, which is basically a type of blockchain designed for businesses. And it's tailor-made for checking the history, the provenance of drugs as they move through the supply chain. It really focuses on keeping things confidential where needed, making sure everyone's accountable, and crucially, allowing different systems to actually talk to each other.
That interoperability thing.
Yes,
Okay.
which is often a big problem.
And what's special about PharmaChain?
Well, one really neat thing is how it uses smart contracts.
Ah, okay. Tell us about those.
Think of them as digital agreements that automatically run themselves when certain conditions are met. So for drug tracking, they can do it in real time, automatically. No need for manual checks, fewer errors, fewer arguments. These contracts can even send out instant alerts if something looks wrong, like a temperature deviation or an unexpected stop in the chain.
And zooming out, blockchain in pharma is trying to fix some big issues, right? Like the lack of transparency we sometimes see,
Definitely.
problems getting drugs delivered quickly and reliably, managing inventory effectively, and just, the slow uptake of new tech in such a vital area.
Now, how about fashion? That's an industry where consumers are asking more and more questions. Where did this come from? Was it made ethically?
Yeah, transparency is becoming huge there. And you've got companies like Provenance doing interesting work. They use blockchain to show the journey of a garment,
How does that work practically?
often with a QR code on the item. You scan it, and you can get info about where the cotton was grown, where it was manufactured, that kind of thing.
Been thinking large picture, that really empowers people, doesn't it, to make choices that align with their values.
For sure.
And it helps the brands that are genuinely trying to be more sustainable and responsible, gives them a way to prove it.
Blockchain's even finding uses in the circular economy and waste management,
Yeah.
which is quite cool.
Yeah. Like what?
Well, Dow has this thing called Project 2 Life in Colombia. They're using blockchain to get real-time info on where recycled materials came from in their journey. That's apparently really key to making the circular economy actually work better and scale up.
Interesting. And there's another one, Project Up, in South Africa.
Yeah, that's a team effort, Petco and the Coca-Cola Foundation. They're using blockchain in the informal waste sector.
How so?
It automatically records cashless payments for waste pickers. Helps make things fair, gives them a clearer, more reliable picture of their own business.
Okay, one more key area. Cold chain logistics. Super important for things that need to stay at specific temperatures, right? Like medicines, some foods.
Absolutely critical. And a blockchain's role there is providing that unchangeable, auditable log of temperature data all the way through the supply chain.
So you know the product hasn't been compromised.
Exactly. Ensures integrity. Germany's using it for pharmaceuticals, building consumer trust. Japan's adopting it, too, for better transparency in both food and pharma supply chains.
So, okay, we've talked a lot about traceability, tracking things from A to B, but it sounds like the benefits go quite a bit further than just knowing where something came from.
Oh, definitely. A big one is potentially better efficiency and lower costs.
How does that work?
Well, because blockchain can streamline things, cut down on paperwork. Think about old school letters of credit and trade. They can take days.
Yeah,
Yeah.
slow and cumbersome.
Blockchain systems might do the same thing in hours, maybe even less. That saves time and money. Less need for intermediaries, too.
And that tamper-proof quality we mentioned, that directly boosts security and helps fight fraud. Not just counterfeit goods, but also dodgy financial stuff like double financing. There are platforms like Monetago working specifically on that.
Right. Plus, these platforms can be built to automatically follow rules and regulations.
Compliance, yeah,
Yeah.
super important in regulated industries like food safety or that cold chain stuff.
Exactly. And smart contracts can even automate parts of the compliance checking.
Another interesting angle is access to trade finance, especially for smaller businesses, SMEs.
How could blockchain help there?
Well, by making the whole process simpler, more secure, more transparent, it could potentially make banks more willing to lend. We know there's a huge gap globally in funding for SME trade.
Mm.
Blockchain may help lower those rejection rates they often face.
And you mentioned streamlining customs before, too.
Yeah, think about digitizing all that back and forth for customs duties, health certificates, import-export licenses, even government-to-government stuff. The Korean Customs Service did a pilot on this. Imagine the time savings.
Huge. And back to smart contracts, quickly.
Right.
Those self-running agreements on the blockchain.
Yeah, they're fascinating.
They can automate so much, like automatically releasing a payment as soon as delivery is confirmed. You can see uses in loans, insurance, lots of contract types.
It all sounds incredibly promising, but we need a reality check too, right? It's not all smooth sailing. There must be significant challenges, hurdles to getting this widely adopted.
Oh, absolutely. Let's be realistic. First big one, trying to connect this new blockchain tech with the old IT systems companies already have, their legacy systems.
That sounds complicated and expensive.
It often is. Getting them to talk to each other seamlessly is a major technical and financial challenge.
And what about handling massive amounts of data? Can these blockchains keep up? Scalability.
That's another key point. Some blockchain networks can struggle a bit with processing huge numbers of transactions really quickly and efficiently. And global supply chains generate tons of transactions. That transaction speed or throughput needs to be high enough.
Then there's a whole legal and regulatory side of things.
Yeah, that's a big one. It's still evolving. Companies have to figure out different rules everywhere about data privacy, trade laws, environmental standards.
The complex web.
Exactly. And there isn't even global agreement yet on the legal status of electronic trade documents registered on a blockchain.
And data privacy itself is a concern, isn't it? Even with transparency being a feature.
Right. While blockchain has security built in, you still need to protect sensitive business data. That often means using specific types permissioned blockchains, where you control who participates.
Okay.
And using advanced privacy techniques, things like zero-knowledge proofs or homomorphic encryption, to keep data safe while still complying with rules like GDPR.
Let's not forget the cost of getting started.
No, definitely not. Setting this up means significant upfront investment. Hardware, software, and importantly, training people how to actually use and manage these new systems.
And interoperability, making different blockchain platforms work together.
Still a big hurdle. We need common standards so data can flow smoothly between different systems. Groups like ISO, UNA, CFACT, they're working on it, but it takes time.
You mentioned the Oracle problem earlier, too. Can you unpack that a little?
Sure. So the blockchain itself might be secure, immutable, but what about the data before it gets put onto the chain?
The input data.
Exactly. The Oracle problem is about ensuring that initial information is accurate and trustworthy. If, say, a temperature sensor breaks and sends the wrong reading to the blockchain.
The blockchain will faithfully record the wrong reading.
Precisely. The garbage in, garbage out principle still applies. You need reliable data sources feeding the chain.
And maybe a final, more human challenge, just getting people and businesses to actually trust and adopt it.
Yeah, that's very real. There's still often a lack of understanding, maybe some skepticism about the technology in the business world and even among the general public. Building that trust and driving adoption takes effort.
Okay, so despite the challenges, what's the outlook? Where is this heading in the future for supply chains?
Well, some predictions are pretty bold. EY, for instance, thinks supply chains could become mostly autonomous by 2035.
Wow, autonomous.
Yeah, driven by a mix of tech, and blockchain is seen as a key piece of that puzzle.
And we'll need people who understand this stuff.
Absolutely. There's a growing focus on education, on building skills, creating a workforce that's actually proficient in blockchain. That's essential if this is going to be implemented successfully and widely.
Collaboration seems critical too.
Totally. Across industries, companies, organizations need to work together, agree on shared goals, common standards. No one can really do this effectively alone.
And we'll likely see more use of those permission blockchains you mentioned for business uses.
Seems likely, yeah.
Yeah.
Because businesses need that control over who's participating. They need identity management, clear accountability. That's harder with fully public blockchains.
And finally, ongoing work on making it even more private and secure.
Definitely. Expect lots more research and development into those advanced privacy techniques, finding ways to protect data even better while still getting the benefits of blockchain.
Okay, so if we were to wrap this up, it seems clear blockchain offers this really powerful set of tools. Tools to seriously improve transparency, traceability, efficiency, and security in these incredibly complex global supply chains.
Yeah, and we're not just talking theory. We're seeing real practical uses popping up across all sorts of industries already.
But, and it's an important but, we also have to recognize the potential is huge, but so are the hurdles. Getting it integrated, making sure it can scale, sorting out the regulations, and just getting broad buy-in and trust, those are still big jobs.
Right.
Which leads us to a final thought, maybe something for you, our listener, to ponder. As this tech keeps developing and as these challenges start to get worked out, how fundamentally might our whole understanding of global trade, of how goods move around the planet, need to change?
That's a big question.
What new kinds of accountability, what new levels of consumer power might we actually see emerge as blockchain matures?
Definitely something to think about. We really hope this deep dive has given you some useful insights. We'd encourage you to check out the source materials or look for other examples of blockchain in supply chains that catch your eye. Thanks for tuning in.